Hey everyone, it's Sarah here, and continuing from yesterday, part 1 of the video, what an experience of letting go physically of dreams, how it inspired this whole 2-part video talk about this. And it's so interesting that it's raining right now. It's actually storming. Perhaps you're gonna hear some of the thunder in the background as we go along, and it's such a great metaphor for washing off the old stuff, and how after the rain there comes the sun and the rainbow and all this all these beautiful things, even after those darkest, cloudiest, rainiest, thunderness, whatever. I think I just made up the word. Anyhow, you get the point. So yesterday we were talking about how sometimes we envision things and we really step into this desire and step into the knowing that we're so aligned with this vision and the dream, and we do whatever it is that we can do to make it happen. And then sometimes things don't work out that way. Sometimes things are taken away from us. Sometimes things, fall apart. And you always have a choice how you're gonna look at it. Like this experience yesterday with the house, right, that I was really falling in love with, and I could already envision us living there and the whole 9 yards. Well, it didn't happen. It went to somebody else. And I actually had to tell you, my mom asked me, how do you feel about this? And I had to think about it. I was like, I was sad, and I wasn't necessarily upset or anything or regretful, because I was like, I did everything that I could have done. I did my part. Obviously there's something different, there's something better coming our way that the universe knows, and I just have to trust the universe. And that is a tricky thing. Hey Joe, how are you? And the tricky thing about trusting is that, especially if you have the analytical and strategic mind, when you want to know the how and you work around the plans, plan A, plan B, plan C, trusting and surrendering, it's one of the hardest things. I know, I've been there many times. But I have to tell you, there was a time when I was convinced that my self-worth and just by identity were equal to the external stuff, like as an athlete, the results on the scoreboard, the statistics. As a student, the grades, right? Oh, I'm so glad to hear that, Joe. I'm amazing. Enjoying the thunderstorm actually here and counting down until we return to the States. I wish we could stay here longer. So, and then as an employee, you have the report cards. As a career person, you climb the ladder, right? And you can check your progress. And as an entrepreneur, at times, especially depending on the circles where you're at, your value, your worth, you believe, is determined by the size of the bank account. And when you're in circles, when everybody's talking about 6 figures and 7 figures and 8 figures and so on and so forth, and your bank account might not necessarily reflect that, it's so easy to start the self-judgment, the pressure that you start putting on yourself, the negative thoughts. We're in Slovenia, Joe. We're in my home country. We've been here since February with my little ones, and they are having a blast. But it was my experience when life had to teach me a lesson. And it did not choose any methods. It took away from me every single thing that I thought was needed to be who I thought I was. And I see it often, and I see it when people's life partners are taken away, when people's health is taken away, when people's dignity, so to speak, is taken away through illness, through whatever it is. And oftentimes we see it as something negative, as painful. Of course it is. I'm not saying that it's, losing a partner or anything is not painful. But there's a lesson, and there's also almost like a sign, an invitation for you to really go inward and detach from all the external stuff and really go inward. So in my example, in my case, I was used to making great money in my business. I was used to a specific lifestyle. I was used to specific results. But at one point, those were not enough anymore. There was always something missing. There was always something that we needed to be more, and the next step, and the next level, and the next level. I burnt out. I became resentful, and I became overwhelmed. As you can hear the thunder in the back. Whoever's up there is probably agreeing with us here, having a party with us. And there was nowhere else to go, because as hard as I was pushing and trying to make it happen, forcing it to make it happen, the farther the things were moving away. Hey, Alinka. And I see that as a very, very common thing. And a lot of us are used to pushing even harder, especially as women who are raised as independent, strong, resilient, who are raised with the notion that your worth bases on the amount of money you're able to bring home, that you're supposed to be supporting every corner of the house when you are this person who refuses to ask for help. And again, I'm talking from experiences. I was joking with my husband, I was like, I'd rather break my arms trying carry 17 bags from the car than asking for help or taking 3 trips, right? You get the point. But what happens is, a lot of times we don't even notice that the life is trying to give us a warning sign, to help us slow down. Hey, Janet, to have us pay attention. And we're pushing even more, we're pushing even harder. And you probably heard the expression, desperate times call in desperate money. And as entrepreneurs, we are all in business. As much as you try to be aligned and as spiritual as you are, and as much of the divine downloads you're getting, and as much as you want to serve and you're here for the purpose, there's always going to be that business component. In order to be in business, there's the exchange of value, and right now we're living in times when the value exchange is monetary. Back then they used to trade meat for eggs and stuff like that. Thank you, Janet, I appreciate that. I know you're the expert. Everybody, if you don't know Janet's the expert of high-end sales, so go check her out. But the thing is that when you start really looking inwards, you start noticing little things that, in terms of the strategy, they used to work. They don't work anymore. The offers that you used to put out there, they don't work anymore. And the tactics that you used to leverage, they don't work anymore, because it seems like we were talking yesterday, the facade is falling down. The structure of your old self is falling down, is peeling off, in order for you to rebuild. And what I also see oftentimes with entrepreneurs, speaking of high-end sales, is when we are driven by fear and we're driven by ego, and we think, well, if so-and-so can charge $30,000 for VIP day, so can I, and we slap that zero on it, and we think we're done. But we are not. Because what happens next is that there's inner conflict. It's a disconnect between what you believe, what you stand for, what your purpose is, what your vision is, how you serve, what you're called to do, and what your ego is dictating you to do. And when somebody is checking you out, they feel that disconnect. You're not being authentic on sales conversations. You're not being authentic and confident and comfortable in your marketing to begin with. So when the time comes to talk to people, it's like, you know what, I love what you do, I'll refer you to others, I'll keep you in mind, you're awesome. But it usually ends there, right? Give me a like if you have been there. I know I've been there many times. That's why I can talk about it so openly. It's all because there's still something in the back of your mind. There's still attachment to something. There's still a belief system that's running like an application on a smartphone, that's running in the background, that's pretty much dictating everything. It's foundation on which everything is built. And it's just waiting to slide, just like a landslide, and taking everything along. So some of the things that I help with my clients, and I'm going to give you a couple of examples because they have gone from $150 an hour service to selling out $15,000 retainers. monthly retainers. It's not just the strategy, it's not just slapping the zero, it's really internalizing your badass self, your brilliance, your genius. And that takes work. When people say it takes work to get to a certain point, that's the work we're talking about. We're not talking about pulling all-nighters. We're not talking about, blogging 5 times a day, live streaming 15 times a day, posting every hour. That's not it. It's the internal stuff. When you are okay with yourself, when everything is taken away from you, and the energy, the brilliance that you bring, the expertise that you bring, the knowledge that you bring, the care for your clients that you bring, the purpose that you have, that's what sustains you. That's what gives you the fire, the power, the enthusiasm, the motivation. That's what inspires you, and that's what gets you going, and that's what people feel. And just like a client of mine who, was really doubting in her genius because there were so many people doing the same thing as she used to do. It's like, oh, I can't possibly sell this for more than $15. No one's gonna buy. And I can't possibly do this for more than, I don't know what it was, like $1,500 intensive with her. No one's gonna buy. My people are the beginners. Well, even beginners, they graduate from the beginning stage. They want more. And if you don't give them that, if you don't trust your capability of giving them that, they're gonna go somewhere else. So when we were diving into all of that, we discovered a $40,000 hole because of the lack of her confidence in herself. There's so many others. Or there was a person who reached out to me who's like, I really have this dream contract in front of me drafted. I just don't have the guts to send it out there because who am I to request $100,000 for my services? Well, guess what? She did it and she got it signed and she got declined. But again, it was like, who am I? Right? Who am I to ask for so much? I shouldn't be so greedy. I shouldn't be so needy. But, and then all of those wounds came up, all of those doubts came up, all of the evidence of our past failures come up, all the times when something did not work, all those times, hey Linia, when the client might not have gotten the result, all of those times when we messed up, when we didn't reach our goals. But we keep forgetting that the reason for all of those was first and foremost because we didn't believe in ourselves. Oh, thanks for the love. Yay! Because we did not believe in ourselves, because we settled to work with people who might not have been ideal clients. We settled to work with them outside of the scope and the terms and parameters that we know we need to maintain in order to be able to serve from our highest power, from our zone of genius. And it's a tricky, really tricky dance because it's a very slippery slope when you start follow those, so to speak, negative evidence. And then you settle some more and you step back down and you slouch in and you quiet down and you tone down. And again, all of those experiences maybe from your childhood come up of be quiet, don't be rude, don't interrupt, don't boast, I know in my culture especially is don't be too different, be like everybody else, don't deviate from the average. And it starts with the educational system. And one of the reasons I'm so freaking passionate about it is because even though my kids are now in a system that's in the United States and not in my country of Slovenia, I see it again. It's like you have to follow certain steps. You have to conform in specific boxes, in specific molds. And it's driving me crazy because there's so many gifts that those children have, and most of them are never going to be aware of them because they do not have the tools. They are not given the opportunity to even explore those gifts. So there we are in our 30s, in our 40s, in our 50s, seeing our lives pass us by, and we're like, who is the person staring back at me in a mirror? Where did my life go? What am I doing? Who am I? And this is why I was so passionate about bringing my kids to Slovenia to give them this experience. And I remember people being so surprised, like, where are you going? Can you really do this? Wow, you're so brave. I wish I could do that. Nothing is stopping you. Nothing but yourself. You are the only one standing in your own way. You and your ego. And I don't mean like you as a person who's watching right now, but you as the audience, you know, our obsession with the how, thinking one day when I have this figured out, one day when I get to this point, one day when I create this, may it be a number in the bank account, may it be a point in our relationship, whatever it is. But the thing is, one day when never comes. Never. It's always around the corner, because by the time we get there, we change so much, we grow, we evolve, circumstances change that require us to react differently, and yet again recalibrate our whole priority and everything else. And like, yeah, you know, I was hoping for, well, I gotta wait for one day when. So what is the bottom line to all of that? Yes, Joe, like you said, just go do it. Just go do it. It might be investing in a mentor that really resonates with you, but you might not have the money required in front of you. When you make the commitment, when you decide that you are worthy, that you're capable, that you're able to do it, everything's gonna fall into place. When you decide to get your kids out of the school, pack your bags, book the flights, and go, everything else is gonna follow and fall into place. When I decided with my second daughter that I was going to take 3 months off for my maternity leave as an entrepreneur, which is pretty unheard of in the States, that I was still going to get paid, I wasn't obsessing about the how at the moment. I first made a decision. This is the fact. It's happening. It's done. And then I was starting to put pieces in place of who do I need to bring on board, how do I need to adjust my business model, how do I need to adjust my pricing, how do I need to attract the right kind of client that I could still support, right? And all of those pieces. But the thing is, we tend to obsess about strategizing first, having it all mapped out, and then from week to week to week, we're tweaking those strategies, we're tweaking the tactics, we're tweaking the service offerings, we're tweaking the marketing message, we're tweaking the graphics, we're tweaking the websites, we're tweaking everything on the external part. That doesn't make any difference. The only thing that it does, it allows us to procrastinate, and it allows us to wait even longer and keep pushing that one day when further away. And in the meantime, life goes by, years go by, people who are looking up to us, who are looking for our service, are trying to settle with some other mentor out there because we're not making ourselves available to them. And you know, the cycle continues, and then again it's like, oh, here, look, I didn't sign this client again, I have a zero in my bank account again, oh, now I have a negative amount. And the whole cycle just continues. We're getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and then one day, like, that's it. Either you burn out or you make a decision that this is no longer acceptable, that you're no longer going to tolerate it, that you deserve, that you desire, that you call in, and that you want something more, that you deserve something more. And one of my mentors, Becky Dixon, she always said, you deserve it just by being here. And Gary Vaynerchuk, he says, just the odds of you being here as a human being in this time and not a tree somewhere in the forest, that in itself grants you the authority to do freaking that thing that you want to do, and follow your heart, follow your intuition, follow your calling. Because believe it or not, it's only 2% of people who dare to do that. Everybody else is settling. Everybody else is just going through life, going through the motions, and then one day hopefully they realize, oh well, I wish I could have done something more. I wish I could have taken the chance. I wish I did that. I wish I did that. And it's oftentimes too late. So on a rainy day, on a stormy day, getting over the disappointment of my so quote unquote dream home being sold to somebody else, this one actually one of the greatest gifts that I could have received during my stay in Slovenia. We've been here for 4 months. And I saw so many layers of my own persona, of my own identity, just simply fall off because I outgrew them, because I decided they no longer fit. I decided I no longer want to carry them around. And I came here, yes, be the 1% of the 1%. There you go, Joe. We came here initially because I was simply homesick. Being in the States for the past 14 plus years, raising 2 little ones with my husband's crazy working schedule, I was like, I needed a change because my body no longer tolerated what I created for myself. I gained 80 plus pounds. I had skin issues. I had anxiety attacks after postpartum depression, all of that. And I could see my little ones picking up on that energy and internalizing and then manifesting in their physical body all of those things. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. They deserve it. And all that was at the time was conviction. It was that internal knowing that I had to do something because there was no external evidence. The doctors did not believe me. People around me did not necessarily see it. And it was internal struggle. Am I going crazy? Am I overreacting? Am I exaggerating? Am I being overly sensitive? Am I being overly protective? It took a lot of work for me to first and foremost trust myself and get to the point of saying, I deserve this, I want that, and actually doing it. And I could see my little one's demeanor. I could see their energy change. And speaking of a little one, there she is. It's soon going to be a bedtime, so I'll have to go. Hey. And the 4 months here have been life-changing for us. I'm not lying. It was really hard being 4,000 miles away from their dad. It was extremely hard for me to be 4,000 miles away from my husband. It was extremely hard also when our dog got injured and requiring a surgery that left him with 6 screws in one of his paws and 13 staples, and being in a physical therapy and me not being able to be there, especially since I brought him home as a puppy. But I just had to trust that there was a higher reason, there was a deeper reason for us to be here and for everything happening at the time. And one of the things that I had to learn, and I actually embraced it, was that, like I said, there were certain parts of my identity that I had to let go. And there were certain parts of my identity that were emerging, I was afraid of, that I started to embrace. And none of that could have happened if I didn't have the right people in my corner, if I didn't have the right mentors who would support me on strategic, on energetic, on level of the mindset, on the level of tactics, you know, you name it. Those people are in my life for a reason, and they know it. And that includes my parents, and that includes my husband still being, you know, I know that we have some deeper connection, even from 4,000 miles away, living unconventional marriage right now, that there is a reason for everything. But it, again, comes down to you trusting that when everything is falling apart around you, when people on the outside, they may still admire you, they may still envy you, and they may still feel like you're on top of the mountain and top of the world and rocking and rolling. You have this internal compass, you have this GPS that guides you, that will let you know when you need to step it up, when you need to slow down, when you need to go inward, when you need to change the direction. It doesn't matter what everybody else says, it doesn't matter what everybody else thinks, it doesn't matter what everybody else is giving you feedback on. It's that internal thing in yourself that you have to learn to trust. And you will see on the other side, once you get through the storm, it does not mean that the storm ends and that's over. They come and go, new level, new devil, as they say. But as you're pulling things up that are weighing you down, and you learn how to be with them, you learn how to love on them, you learn how to dissolve them, you learn how to dance with them, it gets so much easier, because you're becoming truer and truer and truer to yourself, and not what somebody else has taught you to be, not what somebody else has trained you to be. May it be your parents, may it be your teachers, may it be your peers, may it be the society. It is so freeing when you look at the mirror and like, I am being me, and I love it. I love my life. I love every single flaw. You don't even see as a flaw anymore. It's just a part of who you are. It could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be, you know, a trait that you have, a personality trait. Now, I'm not saying that along the way you're not going to change, but you're not going to change in order to satisfy somebody else's expectations, but you're going to change because you'll understand that it allows you to elevate. It allows you to get to the next level and the next level, and really start embodying all of those things. So let me know in the comments what your takeaways are. Let me know what you're experiencing, and let me know what I'm particularly interested in is, if there was no fear, if there were no consequences, if there was no ego standing in the way, if there was no need to figure out the how, what would you be doing right now with your life? What you would be doing about your kids' lives? What would you be doing about your future? Leave me a comment or send me a private message, because I think this is such an important conversation to have, especially right now with what's going on around us. And I'm not even gonna go into the politics. But you have to understand that no one can influence you. No one can dictate how you're gonna live. No one can dictate what you're gonna do, what you're not gonna do. It is on you. Because if you feel like you have to, you give that consent. It's your choice. You choose to see things in a certain way, to respond in a certain way. And it starts as a simple decision to do something different. Step by step, second after second, minute after minute, hour after hour, day after day. Hey, Barbara. And this live stream, of course, is coming to the end because it's getting dark out here and I have to get my kids to bed. But I certainly hope, let me just see the notes to make sure I covered everything. I hope, like I said, this video gives you a permission to do what you long to do, what your soul is calling you to do. That it gives you maybe, I don't know, an inspiration. Let's see, make the most of my life to get a lot. Yeah, be more specific. What is making the most out of life and new experiences? What new experiences? Be as specific as you can be, because think about it that way. When you go to a restaurant and the waiter takes the order, you don't say, I'm gonna have a fish dish, right? Or I'm gonna have dinner. You are very specific. What do you want? What kind of steak do you want? Or what kind of veggies do you want? Do you want them steamed? Do you want them broiled? Do you want them fried, right? Do you want them on the side? Do you want them with the sauce? Do you want them with the butter? Do you want them with the salt? Be as specific as you can possibly be, and then let it go. Because you don't go into the restaurant's kitchen checking on the chef how they're cooking, right? You're just waiting for the meal to be delivered. That is the hardest thing for us people who are so obsessing about the how, thinking we have to have it all figured out, right? Like I said earlier, just letting go and surrendering, it's one of the hardest things, but it's a muscle that you can exercise, but you have to be mindful about it. So, traveling to where? By when? And now again, even breaking it down, are you traveling by train, by car, by the plane, first class, economy class, direct flight, layovers, how much is going to cost you, when is the departure date, all of those details. Australia and Disneyland in America, when? And then how much by when in order to make it happen. And you know, you're a smart cookie, you'll figure it out, but be as specific as possible. As specific. So, love to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for joining me on this live stream. And like I said, send me a message if you need any help with that, or leave a comment if you are ready to change your life. I'm happy to show you how. Love to each and every one of you, and talk to you later. Bye.